So let's begin. How does lockdown affect you at the moment?
How does the lockdown affect me at the moment? Well, I have moved my vocal coaching business entirely online. So I was working out of a studio in Guelph, in downtown Guelph, teaching lessons before. But at this point, I'm just teaching the lessons over Zoom. So one of the nice things about that is I've moved around a little bit, and I've been able to take students with me, and I have maybe some plans or hopes to go to Europe at some point, and be able to teach while I'm there. Obviously, we have to wait for some of these travel restrictions to ease up and for travel to become viable again. But one of the nice things is that I can do it wherever I am. But that's probably been the biggest shift, is like moving all of my teaching online and doing it entirely over Zoom.
Was it a big learning curve when you had to start shifting students one by one into Zoom meetings?
It was a challenge. So at first, I would say I had to almost completely reestablish my student base. A lot of my students, when the pandemic happened, obviously I shut down my studio in March, and I obviously offered to complete my students' lessons online because they buy packages of lessons, so a lot of their lessons are prepaid. But a lot of them, only one of them actually agreed to do their lessons online with me. Everyone else really just wanted to wait until we could be in person again. So when the pandemic showed no signs of letting up, it really became really important for me to beef up sort of my online marketing and my website, and marketing to people outside of my city and all over the world, really, to sustain my business and sustain myself. So that was it was definitely a transition for my students. But one of the things that I was able to do is in the summertime, I sort of came up with the idea of taking my keyboard out onto the back porch and coaching some of those students 10 feet apart in my backyard. So as long as the weather was nice, they would come over, and we would have the lessons outside. So that's how I was able to finish off those people who did really want the in-person lessons. But with the caveat of, like, as long as the weather is good, and this has to be done by the end of the summer. But I was able to do that. And then in the fall, it was just completely 100% online.
Has lockdown been able to open you up to do other creative projects?
Yeah, it's incredible. I would say that the lockdown for me has really inspired me, and led me to do a lot of really more creative things, because I had to rethink how I was doing everything. All of the old models of how to do everything were kind of out the window. So I started engaging a lot more on Instagram. I started live streaming my own practice sessions. I got a lot of followers and people watching that way through Instagram, and yeah, and I started doing these. Well, for Halloween, I did a Clitoria live stream. So I have a musical called Clitoria, a sex positive superhero. It was a musical that I wrote and produced and starred in at the Toronto Fringe Festival in 2019. And I had really hoped to do Clitoria again at the 2020 Guelph Fringe, which I got into. But of course, it was postponed because of the pandemic. And it's unclear, I think, at this point, whether it's going forward or when it's going forward. But I wanted to keep this character going. And so over the Halloween weekend, I did this live stream event where I was Clitoria, and I did sort of a 1 hour song and dance kind of live stream. I made the video of the show from the 2019 Fringe available to watch online for the weekend. And I also released an all new line of Clitoria merch. And I know that this is just going to be an audio interview, but that is what I'm wearing today, is my new Clitoria t-shirt. Just so Ben can see that, but no one else can. But you can link to my website and you can see it on my website later. But yeah, so opening up a line of merch, doing more stuff with Clitoria online. And I have another clitoria live stream event that I will plug whenever you let me, um, whenever you think that's appropriate. But yeah, I would say that those are all kinds of streams of performing and things that I was able to sort of come up with because of the restrictions of the pandemic.
Yeah, but it's been the pandemic's been a fun one for me because since it started, I barely stopped in the last year because obviously I've been out there on the front line, keeping people safe and doing my job. I've been working most days. I work 6 days back to back. That's doing 12-hour shifts, coming home late at night, and then go straight back in. That's either during the night or during the day, and it's been it's been fun. So, but I've not had to stay in permanent lockdown for more than 24 hours.
Right.
I mean, creatively for me, because I like to I do shows on the radio. It's meant I've had to stop that because I just don't have the time. It's I've been able to keep writing, but not as much as I'd like. But
Mm-hmm.
at least I've been able to sort of think about it's been able to open up my mind and help write the stories that I want to, but not yet put them to paper. You were talking about Clitoria. How did that start for you?
Um, Yeah, well, just to touch on the point that you made before about writing and things, I just wanted to say that, sometimes I think there's an expression, limitation is the mother of invention, or something like that. It's like the restriction, the idea that you could do anything, that you have limitless potential to do whatever you want, can actually be a very paralyzing thought when it comes to creativity, and actually having fewer things to work with. Um, Allows you to narrow the scope of what you can do. And so then you go, oh, well, I can do that. And then you do something. Um, and so Clitoria was very much born the same way. Um, I had this idea in my mind that I wanted to write. Well, the original idea was that I wanted to write a one woman musical. And for maybe a year and a half, I sort of toyed with these various ideas or plots or things, and it never really happened. And it became clear at some point that it was never going to happen unless there was some reason for it to happen, unless there was some sort of fire under my butt, so to speak. I don't know if we can swear on this thing, but there needed to be some kind of reason to do it. So what I decided to do is, and the Toronto Fringe is selected by lottery. So I decided to just sort of put my name in the hat for the Toronto Fringe lottery. It's $29 to apply. So I was like, I have $29, sure. So I applied, and I was like, well, if I get in, then I have to write something. And if I don't, then I don't. And I just keep doing what I'm doing. But lo and behold, I got into the festival. I was selected, and I had no show, no concept, no cast, no director, no stage manager, zero. I had like literally blank piece of paper, absolutely nothing. And I also felt, um, I don't know if the word is guilty, maybe responsible, because I happened to notice that in this particular year on my Facebook feed, that a lot of my friends were kind of lamenting that they did not get in this year. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I did. So A, I should not like gloat about this. And B, I I think there's a potential here to harness some people who want to be in the Fringe, who may want to be involved or help out in some way. Um, so yeah, so I did obviously get in, and when you have 9 months to to create a baby like that, and that's literally what it was. It was 9 months from getting in with zero to putting that thing on stage. I had to write about whatever was going on in my life at the time. I had to write about whatever I was thinking about in that moment. And so I also wanted to, and I was going through this sort of personal kind of sexual, emotional relationship kind of reckoning. And so there was a lot of thought, a lot of turmoil around that in my life. And also, um, oh, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. And so I also sort of thought about like, well, I haven't been in the Toronto Fringe for like 5 years. Like, nobody knows me. I have no clout, no name. Like, no one's going to come to this show unless it's like very accessible, very high concept, and it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. So, as a person, like, I am a very, I think, hard to please audience member. I think I get easily bored. So I just thought, what would I want to see? What kind of show would make me go, yeah, I want to go see that? And so obviously, sex, superheroes, sci-fi, cats, like it all just kind of like went from there. Like all of the things that I'm interested in, all of the things that make me jazzed, combined with what I was sort of thinking about at the time, ended up going into this concept of Clitoria, the sex positive superhero.
Sounds like a winner. How much from the original concept has remained within the musical and what has been put in?
That's a great question. So I would say early on into the writing process, once I started toying with all of these ideas and I realized what this was going to need to be about, I realized that it would need to be more than a one woman show and that it would need at least one other cast member for me to have scenes with. I saw myself having scenes and talking to someone and somebody reacting to the things that I said. So I was like, this isn't really a one woman show. I guess I could play out all of these parts. But then when I started writing the music, I was like, oh, I kind of want backup singers for this. So I was like, okay, well, there needs to be a couple of backup singers. But in the original conception of the script, it was me and one other actor on stage and two backup singers and sort of a one-man band type of person off stage. And then I got linked up with my stage manager, Justine Cargo, who connected me with the director, Christopher Wilson of Toronto Musical Concerts. And he's just such a lovely, gregarious, incredibly talented personality. And he really took that script and he really believed in it very early on, but he really made it a musical. So he took those two backup dancers and he put them on stage as actors, and he gave us choreography. He choreographed the musical and he arranged the backup harmonies and he obviously directed and blocked the scenes, but he did so much more. He recorded the backing tracks, and just added a whole bunch of skills to the table that I didn't have and made the musical so much more than it was. And so then these two people were also able to play some of the other characters that needed to be there, like Principal Walters and Mr. Kisses the cat. And I was just so thrilled with the talent of the cast that we got. Um, After the initial casting process, I only ended up with one person who I wanted to cast, um, who was Ursula K. Manfred. But Justine linked us to Jada Rifkin, who ended up playing Mr. Kisses, and Christopher ended up linking us to Matthew Bradley, who played Paul. So it was through these connections that I then found the talent that this cast really made the musical come to life, and they were so invested in it and they had so much fun doing it that like it just became so much more than I had ever envisioned because of the talent of the people involved. So that was a really wonderful evolution and process for me to get to bear witness to as a creator. I don't think there's anything quite like that.
I can agree to that. From what you pre-envisioned the characters to be, did you see that in the cast when you started pulling the people together?
Sorry, what was the first part of the question? I don't think I heard that.
I said when you were pulling the cast together, how much did you see? Did you actually see the characters from your mind and from what you wrote on the page?
That's a great question. To be honest, Matthew Bradley, bless his heart, the first time I met him was at the photo shoot for the Clitoria poster. He was sort of cast like kind of blindly, like sight unseen. And I took him based on Christopher's recommendation. I know, it's the craziness of the fringe, right? Um, but he really I trusted Chris and his judgment, and he really assured me that he was like, no, Matthew's the guy, he can do this. And I was like, great. So he showed up to the photo shoot, and he was so lovely and so respectful and kind and really into the process. And obviously, like, at this photo shoot, the reason why the photo shoot had to happen is because there was a deadline with the fringe to get it done. Where and it's some sort of it's at a ridiculous point in the process, like at like the 3 month mark or something, you have to submit your press photos and things. And at that point, a lot of people may or may not even have their scripts finalized. So it's like, okay, so we had to do it, and so we had to have somebody, an actor there. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. But I was really pleased with him, and he did take the character in a different direction than I had initially envisioned. I saw Paul as um, maybe a little bit more obtuse, a little bit more sort of intellectually pretentious. And Matthew brought this vibe that was like kind of nerdy and sweet and very comical, and just like a far more, I think, likable character, which I think makes the script a lot more interesting because Paul is never supposed to be the villain in this story. So just to give you some background, the primary sort of conflict or tension in the story is that Marianne and her boyfriend Paul proposes to her, but Marianne's not sexually satisfied in their relationship. She's a lot kinkier than Paul is, but she has too much internalized sexual shame to really demand what she wants or to make an honest assessment of the relationship. And so she ends up trying to repress herself. She's a neuroscientist, and she creates a serum to try to get rid of her sexual proclivities. But her cat pees in it when she's not looking, and when she takes it, it only makes her worse. It brings out Clitoria, this like sex goddess, vixen of kink superhero who does nothing, has no shame, and goes after absolutely everything she wants. And we watch as this wreaks havoc on her life that was built around her own sexual shame and sexual repression. So um, that is the central conflict of the story. But the villain is never Paul. The villain is Marianne and her own shame for herself. So I really appreciated that Matthew brought so much heart and likability to that character, because I think it made everything way more interesting than even I had imagined.
Did you ever have a show go wrong, either due to technical difficulties or anything like that?
Well, funny you should ask. Um, so yeah, so at the Toronto Fringe Festival, just so you know, and I know you've done fringes before. I met you at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So you get very little time in your theater space for any kind of tech run. And our poor stage manager, Justine, God love her, she was in the booth, and she's run, and this is a musical, right? And there are starting to be more musicals in the Toronto Fringe, but it hasn't always been that way. And yeah, 3 hours to tech rehearse a musical is not very much time. Um, she's running lighting cues. There were projections. There were microphones that needed to be turned on and off. We were all mic'd. We were on lav mics. That was something that was really important to me because we were in the Theater Pass Marais main space. This is a 180 seat theater. It has a balcony. It was really most. I don't think any of the other musicals at the Toronto Fringe that year were mic'd, but it was really important to me that we were. So there were mics to turn on and off and to monitor. there was all of this tech stuff, and not to mention there are sound cues. She's also playing the backing tracks that go along with us. So the 3 hours in the booth, like she was freaking out. And we as the cast didn't really actually get to run the show. Like we got to, we did some sound cues and some tips and tails type of stuff, but we didn't actually get to run the show. So, and one of the challenges of this show, and I think also one of the things about it that is delightful to watch, is all of the quick changes that happen. So in other words, an actor runs off stage, very quickly has to do a costume change of some kind, and then run back on stage to play a different character. This happens a lot in the show, and I love that, when you're watching a show, that whole like high wired tightrope walk, like watching the actors just like navigate all of this stuff. I find that really fun to watch. Turns out it's very stressful to do, as you can imagine. And so not having had the rehearsal in the space that we probably could have used on the first night. So one of the biggest, the scariest things for me was the wig, because the wig for Clitoria has to come off and on very quickly. And normally with a wig of this kind, you need to adjust the wig. You need a minute to like clip in the wig clips, and you would have like a wig cap on, and like that was just not possible, because I literally would have to like run off stage, put on this wig, run back on stage in a matter of 10 seconds. Like, and it just had to be right. And it just had to be right. So the first night, and granted, we ran the first night as what's called a preview show, which means that you charge less money for it. The first night, there's a scene in Clitoria where I have to put on a wig. I basically, on stage, get down under a desk, and the wig is there. I throw on the wig, and I have to come back up, and now I'm Clitoria. So, like, I do the change on stage behind a desk. And the wig just wouldn't come on. Like, I just kept putting it on, and it just didn't like sit, like it just wouldn't grab my head. I don't know what else to say. And there's all these like folds and hair and stuff, and so like everyone's waiting, and the sound cue has come on for the song that I'm supposed to be singing, and I'm still like fumbling this wig. And my co-stars Ursula comes over, bless her heart, to try to help me put this wig on and figure out what the F is happening. And Jada, so funny, goes, when I finally get it on, she goes, "Oh my God, Miss, you look great." You look amazing. Just like ad lib. And the whole audience lost it. And then I don't know, we recued the song and we like did the song, but it was so fun. And I think the audience was with us because we all just like I don't know. I feel like my co-stars really saved me in that moment, because I was freaking out, and I'm like trying to sort of mumble the words to this song while I'm like dealing with this. And like it was clear that my mind was so divided that I was not going to be successful at any of the things I was trying to do in that moment. So thank God that they stepped up and helped me, and that we were able to get on with the show. And of course, the other thing you're thinking about is like, oh my God, we only have like a 1 hour slot, and it's a 55-minute show, and we don't have time for this, right? So it's like a million things. But yeah, that was probably our biggest technical glitch during the Toronto Fringe.
Oh, yeah. But it's great when those things happen, especially at Fringe festivals, because obviously I know full well, because I've done 3 prior to when you came up with Countermeasure in 2016. Mm-hmm. So I've seen it all, because I know that when guys don't have the time to waste to get in and then out again, and those are again long days, and there were 1,000 shows going on at the same time. So we had to be on the ball of getting shows up and on the road. but it was fun. It was fun to see it from another side when obviously you guys came for the last 2 weeks and to be part of the show rather than part of the festival for a fun change, which was nice.
Yeah, it was great having you there to host. And I remember, and I had that Edinburgh experience going into the Toronto Fringe, and I knew about, how little space you get to store your stuff, and how little time you get to set up. And I think that the Edinburgh experience, in a way, it really prepared me for the Fringe quite well. Because, and the great thing about us is that there were 14 of us, plus a few. And we were able to set up our stuff by having this really well rehearsed system of setup and tear down, where it's like you do exactly this and you pass this to him. And it felt like a Rube Goldberg machine almost, like the way that everything came together, the way that was planned, our setup and tear down. Again, it was like a well-oiled machine, and it had to be that way in order for it to work. But we pulled it off. And that's, I think, the fun of performing is, like, again, it's that tightrope walk of like, are we gonna make it? Like, are we gonna be able to pull this off? Like, I don't know. And the audience doesn't know. But you do.
Oh yes, it was a fun show as well, because it wasn't just you guys performing songs from the album at the time. You also did 500 Miles, which I actually suggested, because Aaron came to me and said, "What Scottish song can we do coming to the Edinburgh Fringe?" And I was like, "And me and Jamie were going, we could do 500 Miles. We could do something else like that." But we just said, "Look, you take it, run with it, do whatever you feel is right." And also, you filmed the video for Fox in the Field in Edinburgh as well.
That's right.
Because you took to Arthur's Seat and in the early hours of the morning to do that. And if anybody should see it, go check it out on YouTube. It is a fantastic video and an absolutely gorgeous song as well, that's sung by the boys.
Yeah, I mean, I have to hand it, like, I didn't have to get up early and go to Arthur's Seat to film that video. I think at some point me and the ladies did show up. I know there are definitely pictures where we came with like sandwiches and water and tea and stuff for them. Yeah, we came to help them out, but we did not have to be there that early. That's one call I didn't have to make. So I gotta hand it to the boys. That was all them.
And also, because me and Jamie met you on the night that you arrived in Edinburgh as well. Probably unaware to you that the guy who you were renting the house from saw me and Jamie loitering about, wondering what the hell we were doing. Yet the poor thing was, the guy had been robbed the night before, and he thought we were coming back to do him over again.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we said, he came out and spoke to us. He said, "What are you two doing here?" "Oh, we're waiting for friends to arrive because they're coming up for the Edinburgh Fringe." I was like, "Oh, thank God! I thought you were coming to rob me." I was like, "No, why would we do that?" But I felt so bad for the guy afterwards. I was like,
Oh no.
"Oh."
Well, because you're Scottish, right? You must be the perpetrators. We were foreigners, so we must be the guests. Who are these two Scottish guys with them? This doesn't make any sense.
Well, Jamie's more Scottish than I am, because I've only lived up here since late 2009, and I've lived in Essex for most of my life. So he was more, could have been the perpetrator than me. But
Okay.
But going forward, what are you looking forward to doing in the next year? When hoping the pandemic eases off a bit.
That's a great question. Oh wow. What do I even have hopes or dreams anymore? That sounds depressing, but I would say that I have been focused on settling into this pandemic life because I think we're going to be here for a while. But the main things that I'm working on right now are so I'm trying to finish up school. For the past sort of, I guess, gosh, I was 28 when I started, so I'm 35 now. You can edit that out later if you want. So I guess for the last 7 years, I have been working on my ARCT diploma with the Royal Conservatory of Music, the associate of the Royal Conservatory. I don't know what the last T is for. Nobody knows. And yeah, I am at this point. I'm 2 exams away from finishing. Um, so I've been working on that. Um, I'm currently working on my final singing exam, and I'm waiting to find out if I have an extension on it, because since we've been in lockdown, I haven't been able to rehearse with my accompanist. Um, because we're in a lockdown in Ontario right now, so I'm just kind of waiting to hear back about that. Um, and then I also have to write another exam, and then I'm done. Um, so trying to finish school again, just sort of working on teaching and coaching and helping as many students as I can. Um, I also have an event coming up. So I'm doing a very Clitoria Valentine's Day, and you heard it here first. It's going to be another live stream event performance, a Valentine's Day date with Clitoria on Valentine's Day, February 24th at 6 p.m. And it's going to be broadcast live streamed from my Facebook page, but it's also going to be shared. It's being done in conjunction with Guelph Pride. So their Winter Pride Festival runs February 5th to 14th. And yeah, so I'll be the last event that day. So yeah, you can check out their website, guelphpride.com, or my website. I will have something up there. None of this has been like announced or posted yet or anything. Like I said, you heard it here first. And I don't know when you're planning on posting this interview, but yeah, that's what's coming up for me next. I'm looking forward to doing more live stream performances and figuring out, what to do with Clitoria next, what her next moves are. But also, like I said, it is my goal to at some point move to Europe, and I have a sister in Germany who I would like to join, and there are some potential opportunities for me there with classical singing. So I'm sort of putting out feelers for some of that stuff right now. But at the moment, it's just about finishing school and continuing to work, and and just trying not to go crazy. Those are the main things.
I'm sure that will never happen.
it happens. It happens daily here.
I think it's happened with me, but I've just not noticed it yet. Because obviously we're in full on lockdown unless essential travel is advised. And is that the same for you right now?
Yeah, Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, put out a Facebook message. I think it was today or yesterday, saying, "No travel, coming soon, more information." It was like this sort of veiled threat that they're going to be imposing more travel restrictions. Because people keep going on vacations, and this is a bit of a problem. Is like, so technically, and I mean, I'm not an expert on this by any means, but it seems to be the situation that even though individual countries have travel restrictions, the airlines are still letting people book flights because the airline industry is in complete disaster right now, and they have to make whatever money they can. So they will let you book the flight and pay for it, and if you pass your fever tests or whatever, they'll let you get on the plane and they'll let you go. And it's really up to the receiving country whether they're going to take you or not. And people are going on vacations to the Dominican Republic and Mexico, and like these sort of Caribbean or Latin American countries. At least that those are the typical vacation destinations for North Americans, is sort of the Caribbean and Central America. Um, so people are going on all these vacations, and it's bad. They're spreading COVID. They're bringing back COVID, and there have been some really high profile politicians and hospital leaders who went on vacations and came back and have been fired or resigned or whatever. But technically, it's not. It hasn't been illegal. up to this point to fly anywhere. It's just like the government's like, please don't do it. Um, but I think Trudeau's coming up with something to make it more illegal.
Well, for us, up to a few days before Christmas, because I was actually planning to leave and go and see family for Christmas, but unfortunately I had to cancel because it got announced that come Boxing Day they're closing the borders, and we're saying no one, not letting anybody in or out.
Mhm.
So I had to apologise to family, saying I can't come down anymore because I don't know if I'll get stuck at the other side of the border or whether I'll still get back. So I actually spent time in my support bubble rather than going away, which I actually miss. And I'm hoping, hopefully, maybe not this year, maybe next year with any luck, that I'll actually get to see family, not just over the phone or down the video chat like we're doing, and that things hopefully get back to normal. Because obviously the big things that we missed this year was Edinburgh Fringe. That's moved online as well from last year. We lost the big Christmas market, and also
Mhm.
again also online is the big Hogmanay street party that we have. That's gone online last year as well, which I'm believing is going to do the same again this year.
Mhm. Yeah, there's definitely been a lot lost and a lot sacrificed with the pandemic. And yeah, obviously things like seeing family and friends in person, but it's also even just like the random encounters that you would typically have. Maybe you would have a conversation in line with somebody at, the grocery store. Maybe you would go to a pub and strike up a conversation with the person next to you. And all of that stuff is just like not happening. And um yeah, it's really sad. It's really sad, and we have to be a lot more deliberate in making sure that we reach out to people, making sure that we talk to people, um and taking care of ourselves the best that we can, because yeah, that loss of human interaction, it's really hard. It really sucks.
It is, and as I also say, when I've been heading for work, as I say, when I'm heading out either on day shift or night shift, I've seen places that used to be businesses but have now gone under because they just can't keep their shops that they've bought up and running, because they've had to be able to pay staff. And there's probably going to be more that's going to go under before we even get out of this whole pandemic.
Yeah, I think that the faces of our cities are going to change a lot, and I think people don't people will start to understand, oh gosh, like I really liked that store. I really missed that place. I really missed those people or having that there. I didn't realize how much it meant to me to have that little antique shop there on that corner that I could just walk into, and obviously like capitalism gets a bad rap and stuff like that. But like, I think that these small businesses, they actually contribute a lot to the character of our cities and to our communities, and we're gonna miss them. If you have to support them before they're gone. And that's why on my Instagram I've made such a point of promoting like shopping local and making posts or stories about any local businesses or small businesses that I'm supporting, because I'm also a small business. And I think it's really important that we support each other, and that we remember as much as possible, whenever you need to buy something, before you go straight to Amazon, like think about your local small businesses. A lot of them are doing delivery. They're just driving this stuff around themselves in their own cars for no extra money. They're doing everything they can to pivot in the pandemic pivot, I call it, to change their businesses so that they can do this. And another thing that I just want to say, and I don't know if this was the case for you where you were, but where I am in Guelph and in Ontario, certainly, when the pandemic was first announced in March, um, I feel like the first serious response that I saw socially came from small businesses. The government didn't really, it took them a little bit longer to actually respond. The first thing that, the first really serious thing that I noticed happening was small businesses shutting their doors voluntarily, closing down their businesses to protect the public. And it wasn't until maybe a week or two later that we started seeing government imposed restrictions or advice of any kind. And I remember in Canada, it took a while for them to even say, like, you should be wearing a mask outside. At first, I remember our I forget what her position is, Theresa Tam. She's like the Minister of Health or something for Canada. And she was saying, oh, you can wear a mask if you want to. And then a few weeks later, it was like, well, now you really should be wearing a mask indoors in any business. And now they're saying we should be wearing them outdoors too. But the first serious response came from small businesses who cannot afford to shut their doors the way that they did. And I think that just speaks a lot to the integrity of these people and these businesses. And um, I think that they've gotten kind of I'm sorry, excuse my language, kind of a shitty deal when it comes to government restrictions in terms of making them shut down, but not making big box stores shut down. And there are still lots of people in line at Walmart, and you know what I mean? And that's a whole other issue we could get into. You can't buy electronics at a small used electronics store, but if you go to Walmart, you can because they sell groceries. It's like, it's ridiculous. So I have to remind people that small businesses, have taken a real hit in all of this, but they are also the ones who responded first to try to protect us. And I think it's really important that we not forget that.
Yeah, that's fairly true. I mean, going back nearly a year when it first kicked off for us, we were, I wouldn't say we were slow off the mark, but we knew, but our First Minister, Nicola, was on the ball. She was talking to the people that she needed to, and then giving the advice that to everyone as she does. Mm-hmm. But yet she's been smart enough that she's taken that advice and gone, this needs to be done, that needs to be done. Whereas I felt, because obviously we've got Boris in the UK who I'll be as nice as I can about saying this. He seems to be a little bit on the slow side, because anything that we do, he finally catches up about a week or so later. Because we got Nicola like saying, right, we're putting everyone onto the tier system and and getting people locked down as and when necessary. Boris realizes it, does it about a week later, and it finally catches up, because I'm not sure he knows exactly what is going on or how to take the advice that he's given.
Well, and he had COVID himself, didn't he?
Yes, he was in hospital for just over 2 weeks, I believe. Mm-hmm.
Oh. It's interesting. Like, I know that for Trump, I think that his mishandling of COVID ended up being a big election issue. And the fact that he got it and didn't seem to be taking it seriously, I think that ended up being something that kind of turned the tides in America in terms of the election. Do you think that Boris Johnson has lost the support and confidence of the British people? Like, do you think he will be affected in the next election?
Well, he is starting to be an effective leader, but I think he has lost some of the faith of the British people. He may just survive another election if it comes. Mm-hmm. But it all depends on how the rest of COVID-19 rides out for him. Because if he does actually effectively lead, he might bring those people back into the fold and say, I really trust this guy. He knows what the hell he's doing. but I say it all depends on what he does over the coming weeks and months. And you were saying about Trump. In my belief, Trump just stumbled from one issue and then made it bigger, and then just went, "Oh, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's somebody else," and he just parceled the blame off. He didn't take any actual responsibility for himself.
No.
But we got high hopes for Biden that he will sweep out what most of Trump has done. He will take lead where he needs to and do the job that a president should.
I hope so. He's got a big battle. He's got an uphill. It's going to be an uphill battle for him to climb. And it's I don't know. I mean, America's in a pretty tough state right now.
Yeah.
And I think that pinning all of our hopes and dreams on one president to like end racism and end division and unify the country and end COVID, like, you know, I can't help but wonder if maybe our expectations of Joe Biden are a little unrealistic and we are setting ourselves up to be disappointed and to be disappointed in him. There's really only so much he can do. And I'm glad that we're seeing leadership that's moving at least in the right direction. I'm glad. I think that the pandemic has really highlighted the need for competent politicians, the importance of leadership at a time like this, and that it's actually not okay to just elect a demagogue. It's not okay to that this person is actually going to be. This person could have policy and attitudes and opinions that affect whether you live or die. And I think that that's something that maybe is starting to get through to some people. That what these politicians do, they're not just here to rile up our basic instincts. They're actually here to try to protect and govern society in a really important, tangible, life or death kind of way. And I hope that everyone takes that out of this situation and and participates in their political process with a bit more of a sense of responsibility for the greater good and not just trying to push their own agenda and their own beliefs all the time.
Well, we'll see what happens over the next few months. But as you say, we could just be pinning too high hopes on Biden to lead where Trump has failed. Right. So just for everyone who so they can find you on social media.
Well, you can find me on Instagram. I'm at laurabaileymusic.com. You can also find my Facebook page, Laura Bailey Music 15. Or just type in Laura Bailey Music. And then my Twitter is at _Laura Bailey. But of course, for all things Laura Bailey, you can always go to laurabaileymusic.com, my website, and that will link you to all of my social media channels, my YouTube, my Bandcamp, and my merch shop as well.
Thank you for that, Laura. We'll catch up with you again later on in the show.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Take care.
Take care. Bye.